The transport shuttle broke through the atmosphere shield of the Galactic Academy, and Minu pressed his face against the window. The station stretched out before him like a small moon, covered in towers and training fields that glowed with different colored lights. Somewhere in there, warriors from 100 different worlds were learning to fight together. And now, somehow, he was one of them. "First time seeing it?" asked from the seat beside him. She was looking out her own window, her reflection showing a slight smile. "It's bigger than I thought." "Much bigger," Minu agreed. He had seen pictures, of course. Everyone on Earth had seen pictures of the Academy, but pictures could not capture the sheer size of it, or the way it made his stomach twist with nervousness and excitement at the same time. Sat across from them, his eyes closed. He had been reading files on his for the entire 6-hour journey from the lunar station. "The Academy trains 40,000 cadets at any given time," he said without opening his eyes. "We are 3 of approximately 12,000 new arrivals this cycle." "Did you memorize the entire orientation packet?" asked. "Yes," said simply. The shuttle docked with a heavy clang. Around them, other cadets were gathering their belongings and heading toward the exit. Minu noticed that most of them were much larger than any human. A group of cadets moved past, their scaled skin gleaming under the shuttle lights. Each one stood at least 7 feet tall, with powerful legs and arms that ended in clawed hands. One of them glanced at Minu as it passed, and its vertical pupils narrowed with what might have been curiosity or contempt. The 3 humans followed the crowd into the station. The main hall was enormous, with a ceiling so high that Minu could barely see it. Cadets of every species imaginable filled the space. Some had fur, others had scales or shells. Some walked on 2 legs, others on 4 or 6. A few floated through the air on wings or anti-gravity fields. The noise was incredible, a mixture of voices in languages Minu had never heard before. "Attention!" A voice boomed across the hall, and instantly every cadet fell silent. Minu looked up and saw a figure standing on a platform high above them. It was even larger than the ones on the shuttle. Its scales were dark green, almost black, and marked with scars that spoke of many battles. "I am Commander Thrace. You are here because your worlds have chosen you. You represent the finest warriors your species can produce." The commander's eyes swept across the crowd. "For the next 4 cycles, you will train together. You will learn to fight as one force, one core. Some of you will fail. Most of you will succeed. All of you will be tested beyond anything you have experienced before." Minu felt shift beside him. She was standing, her hands clasped behind her back in a military posture she must have learned before coming here. "Each species brings unique strengths to the Defense Corps," Commander Thrace continued. "They bring power and ferocity. They bring coordination and precision. They bring endurance and adaptability." He paused, and his gaze seemed to find the small group of humans in the crowd. "And some species bring other talents, support roles, technical skills, cultural understanding." Minu felt his jaw tighten. He knew what was coming. "Humans," Commander Thrace said, and now he was definitely looking at them. "Your people have many gifts. You are excellent diplomats. Your scientists have made remarkable contributions to galactic knowledge. Your artists have enriched our culture." Another pause. "But Earth breeds no warriors. You come from a world without great predators, without clan wars, without the evolutionary pressures that create soldier castes. Therefore, human cadets will be assigned to logistics, medical support, and liaison divisions. You will serve the Corps in ways that match your nature." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Around them, Minu could feel other cadets turning to look at the humans with a mixture of pity and satisfaction. His hand shot up. Commander Thrace's eyes narrowed. "You have a question, Cadet?" "Yes, Commander." His voice was steady and clear. "With respect, I did not come here to be a support technician. I came here to be a warrior." A low rumble of laughter spread through the cadets. Even some of the other species seemed amused. Commander Thrace raised a clawed hand, and the noise stopped immediately. Your desire is noted, Cadet, but desire does not change biology. The commander leaned forward slightly. Look around you. They are born with natural weapons and armor. They have 4 arms and can communicate instantly with their team. They can survive in environments that would kill you in seconds. What does humanity bring to the battlefield that can match these advantages? Opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Minyu could see the frustration on her face, the anger at being dismissed so casually. Exactly, Commander Thrace said. You have no answer because there is no answer. Your world has no predators that shaped you, no clan wars that forged you, no evolutionary arms race that made you dangerous. He straightened up. Dismissed. Report to your assigned divisions. The crowd began to break up, cadets moving toward different sections of the hall. The 3 humans stood still, frozen by the weight of what had just happened. They had traveled across the galaxy. They had passed the entrance examinations. They had been chosen from millions of applicants, and now they were being told they would never be real soldiers. Minyu felt something cold settle in his chest. It was not anger, not exactly. It was more like determination crystallizing into something hard and sharp. He stepped forward. Commander, he said. His voice was not loud, but something in it made the cadets near him stop and turn. You are looking at one. Commander Thrace paused on the platform and turned back. Explain yourself, Cadet. Minyu met the commander's eyes. Around him, hundreds of alien cadets were watching, and stood at his sides, and he could feel their support even without looking at them. You asked what warriors could emerge from Earth, Minyu said. I am telling you that you are looking at one right now. The silence that followed was different from before. It was not the silence of obedience, but the silence of shock. A human, barely 5.5 feet tall, standing in a room full of creatures bred for war, claiming to be a warrior. Commander Thrace descended from the platform. He moved with the fluid grace of a predator, and when he reached Minyu, he loomed over him like a mountain. This close, Minyu could see every scar on the commander's scales, could smell the strange metallic scent of biology. Bold words, Commander Thrace said softly. Can you back them up? Give me the chance to try, Minyu replied. The commander studied him for a long moment. Then, to Minyu's surprise, something that might have been a smile crossed his reptilian features. Very well, you humans want to be treated as warriors. Then you will undergo the same trials as the warrior castes. The same tests, the same standards, the same consequences for failure. He leaned closer. And when you fail, you will accept your place in the support divisions without complaint. Agreed. Agreed, Minyu said. Agreed, echoed. Agreed, added quietly. Commander Thrace straightened up and addressed the entire hall. Let it be known that the human cadets have chosen the warrior path. They will be judged as warriors, not as humans. If they prove worthy, they will serve as warriors. If they fail, they will serve where they are needed. He turned back to Minyu. Report to Combat Division 7 tomorrow at dawn. Bring your courage, human. You will need it. The commander walked away, and slowly the crowd began to disperse again. But now the looks the aliens gave the humans were different. Not pity or amusement, but curiosity, and perhaps in a few cases, the smallest hint of respect. Well, said as they made their way toward the residential section, that was either very brave or very stupid. Probably both, agreed. Minyu said nothing. He was thinking about the trials ahead, about the impossibility of what they had just agreed to do. They would be competing against species that had evolved for combat, with natural advantages humans could never match. But as they walked through the halls of the academy, passing warriors from a dozen different worlds, Minyu felt no fear, only certainty. Commander Thrace had asked what warriors could emerge from Earth. He was about to find out. The arena was designed to break cadets. Minyu understood this the moment he stepped onto the sand floor and looked up at the towering walls. Thousands of seats rose in circles around the fighting pit, most of them empty this early in the morning. A few instructors sat in the observation boxes, their faces hidden behind reflective screens. Above everything, the dome ceiling showed a projection of space, stars glittering against the darkness. "Welcome to your first trial," announced instructor, with dark green carapace and 4 arms that moved independently of each other. "Combat assessment. You will face opponents from other species. The goal is not to win. The goal is to survive and demonstrate competence." Minyu glanced at the other cadets assembled around the arena floor. There were 30 of them, divided into 3 groups. They stood together, their massive forms relaxed but ready. They clustered near the far wall, their crystalline bodies catching the light and throwing rainbow patterns across the sand. A few waited near the center, their antennae twitching with anticipation. And then there were the 3 humans, looking small and soft compared to everything else in the room. "First match," instructor announced. "Cadet Minyu of Earth versus Cadet of Prime." A step forward from the group. He was young, Minyu guessed, probably the same age in years as Minyu was in human years. But he stood nearly 7 feet tall, with scales the color of dried blood and claws that gleamed like metal. Scars already marked his arms and chest, signs of training that had started long before he came to the academy. Minyu walked to the center of the arena. He had no natural weapons, no armor, no enhanced strength. He wore the standard cadet training suit, a thin layer of smart fabric that would protect him from fatal injuries but would not stop pain or broken bones. Across from him needed nothing but his own body. "Begin," said. Moved fast, faster than Minyu expected. They covered the distance between them in 3 long strides, claws extended, going for a straight grapple that would use his superior strength and weight. It was a smart opening move against a smaller opponent. Minyu was not there when arrived. He had stepped sideways at the last possible moment, just enough to make the miss by inches. His momentum carried him forward, and for just a heartbeat, his side was exposed. Minyu drove his elbow into the gap between 2 scales on his ribs, aiming for the soft tissue underneath. Grunted and spun, one massive arm swinging in a backhand that would have broken Minyu's jaw if it connected. But Minyu had already ducked, rolling under the blow and coming up several feet away. "You are quick," said, circling now more cautious, "but speed alone will not save you." Minyu did not reply. He was watching, studying the way moved. They favored his right side, putting slightly more weight on his right leg. An old injury, perhaps, or just natural preference. Either way, it was information. Charged again, but this time he feinted left before attacking right. Minyu saw it coming and rolled with the impact, using his own force to throw him off balance. They hit the ground together, and for a moment, Minyu was trapped under this superior weight. Claws raked across his shoulder, and pain exploded through his arm. But Minyu had his legs free. He drove his knee up into his stomach once, twice, 3 times, targeting the same spot each time. The scales there were thinner, designed for flexibility rather than protection. His breath left him in a rush, and his grip loosened just enough. Minyu twisted free and scrambled away, blood running down his arm. Got to his feet more slowly, one hand pressed to his stomach. "Enough," instructor called. "Match concluded. Cadet wins on points." Minyu nodded, accepting the decision. He had lost, but he had lasted 2 full minutes against in close combat. From the look on his face, that was longer than they had expected. The medic, a small furred creature whose species Minyu did not recognize, sprayed something cold on his shoulder. The pain faded immediately, and he could see the cuts already beginning to close. Alien medicine was remarkable. "You fight like prey," said, approaching him after the match. But there was no insult in his voice, only curiosity. "You do not try to overpower. You look for weak points." "Because I cannot overpower you," Minyu said simply, "so I have to be smarter." Tilted his head, considering this. "Where did you learn to fight?" "On Earth," Minyu said. "We have schools, teachers, thousands of years of martial arts traditions. But I was told Earth has no warrior culture, said. Minyu smiled slightly. We have many cultures, and most of them had warriors at some point. The trials continued throughout the day. Faced in a zero-gravity chamber, a test designed for species that could manipulate their own density and mass. She struggled, her human body unused to fighting without up or down, without the familiar pull of gravity to orient her movements. She crashed into walls, got disoriented, and lost the match badly. But she never gave up. Even when the instructor suggested she withdraw, kept fighting until the time limit expired. Stubborn, the instructor noted in his evaluation, refuses to accept defeat even when defeat is certain, tactically questionable, psychologically interesting. His trial was different. He was placed in a strategy simulation against a hive commander, a test of tactical thinking rather than physical combat. The scenario was simple: defend a colony against pirate raiders with limited resources. The commander used standard hive tactics, coordinating multiple units with perfect synchronization, attacking from several directions at once. Defeated him in 18 moves. How? The demanded afterward, his antennae vibrating with frustration. You had fewer units, less firepower, and no coordination advantage. I did not fight your units, explained calmly. I fought you. I studied how you think, how hive minds make decisions. You value efficiency and coordination above surprise. So I did things that made no tactical sense, and your responses were delayed because you could not predict irrational behavior. The instructor was silent for a long moment. Then he marked something on his and walked away without comment. That evening, the three humans sat together in the cafeteria. Around them, cadets from other species clustered in their own groups. The ate massive portions of raw meat. The absorbed nutrients through their skin from plates of mineral-rich powder. The shared food from a communal bowl, their hive instincts even extending to meals. We lost, said, poking at her food. The academy provided human-compatible meals, but they were bland and textureless, designed for nutrition rather than enjoyment. All three of us lost our primary trials. We survived them, Minyu corrected. That is different from losing. Minyu is right, said. The instructor said the goal was not winning, it was demonstrating competence. We did that. Did we? Asked. Because from where I was floating helplessly in that chamber, it did not feel very competent. Before Minyu could respond, a shadow fell across their table. He looked up to see standing there holding a tray of food. The looked uncomfortable, his posture uncertain. May I sit? Asked. The humans exchanged glances, then Minyu gestured to the empty seat. Of course. Sat, his large frame making the standard chair look like furniture designed for children. For a moment, he just ate in silence. Then he said, I have been thinking about our match today, about the way you fight. And, Minyu prompted. It bothers me, admitted. On my world, we train from childhood. We learn honor, courage, the warrior codes passed down for generations. We fight to prove our strength, to earn glory. He looked at Minyu. You fight like none of that matters to you. It does not, Minyu said honestly. I fight to win. But where is the honor in that? Asked. You target weak points. You use your opponent's strength against them. You retreat when pressed. These are not the ways of warriors. Laughed, a short bitter sound. Maybe not your warriors, but they are the ways of our warriors. Explain, said. Set down his fork. On Earth, we do not have one warrior tradition. We have hundreds. Korean warriors, Japanese samurai, European knights, African tribal fighters, Chinese martial artists. Each culture developed its own way of fighting based on what they needed to survive. And what they all learned, Minyu continued, is that honor is a luxury. The warrior who lives to fight another day is more valuable than the warrior who dies gloriously. His eyes narrowed. But Commander Thrace said Earth has no warrior culture, that your world is peaceful. It is now, said quietly, But it was not always. We fought each other for thousands of years. We got very good at it, too good. And then we decided to stop before we destroyed ourselves. There was silent, processing this. Finally, he said, I would like to fight you again, Cadet Minyu, tomorrow if you are willing. I want to understand this way of fighting that makes no sense to me. Minyu smiled. I would be honored. Later that night, as Minyu lay in his bunk staring at the ceiling, he thought about Commander Thrace's words. Earth breeds no warriors. The commander had been looking for warriors like the warriors bred for combat, shaped by evolution and tradition into living weapons. But humans were different. Humans had made themselves into warriors. They had taken soft bodies and fragile bones and taught them to fight anyway. They had studied war like a science, practiced it like an art, and finally, chosen to set it aside like a burden too heavy to carry. The question was not whether Earth could breed warriors. The question was whether the galaxy was ready for the warriors Earth had already made. Commander Thrace sat in his office, staring at the holographic display floating above his desk. Data streamed across the screens, records and files from a world he had barely considered before this week. Earth, the human, the peaceful planet of artists and diplomats. Except nothing he was reading suggested peace. The door chimed. Enter, Thrace commanded. The three human cadets walked in and stood at attention. They had been at the academy for 2 weeks now, and they looked different from when they arrived. Thinner, harder, marked with the small scars that even advanced medicine could not completely erase. They had been through 14 trials now, and they had lost most of them. But they had completed all of them, which was more than could be said for many cadets from warrior species. Sit, Thrace said, gesturing to the chairs across from his desk. They sat, their movements synchronized in a way that reminded him of hive coordination, but more natural, less mechanical. Humans, he had learned, were very good at working together when they chose to. I have been studying your world, Thrace began, dismissing the holographic displays with a wave of his hand. Your history, your cultures, your wars. He leaned forward. And I am confused. Confused about what, Commander? Minyu asked. You present yourselves as peaceful. Your diplomatic corps is famous across the galaxy for resolving conflicts. Your scientists speak constantly of cooperation and mutual benefit. Your representatives at the Galactic Council advocate for non-violent solutions to every problem. Thrace pulled up a new display, showing a timeline of Earth's history. And yet your species has been at war continuously for the past 10,000 years. The silence that followed was heavy. It is not continuous, said finally. There have been periods of peace. Yids, Thrace repeated. Brief periods between conflicts. Your planet has never known true galactic peace because you have never had galactic unity. You fight each other instead. He stood, packing behind his desk. The Battle of Thermopylae, the Mongol conquests, the world wars, the proxy conflicts, the cyber wars, thousands of battles, millions of dead, entire cities destroyed. He turned to face them. Which is the lie, the peaceful diplomats or the warriors who built mountains of skulls? Minyu's jaw tightened, but his voice remained calm. Neither is a lie, Commander, we are both. That is not possible, Thrace said flatly. It is for humans, replied. She leaned forward in her chair. We learned to be both, we had to. Thrace sat back down studying them. Explain. Minyu glanced at and some silent communication passing between them. Then he began to speak. Every species here evolved against external threats. They had predators. They had rival hives. They had hostile environments. You became warriors to survive against enemies that were fundamentally different from you. Yes, Thrace agreed. That is the natural way. Humans had no external threats, Minyu continued. Our predators were animals we hunted to extinction. Our environment was harsh but manageable. We had no alien invaders, no rival species competing for resources, so we fought the only enemy available to us. Ourselves, finished. For 10,000 years, humans fought other humans, And every innovation, every strategy, every warrior tradition was developed to defeat people who thought exactly like us. Thrace felt something cold settle in his stomach. You evolved to fight yourselves. Not evolved, corrected. We adapted. We learned. Every generation studied the wars of previous generations, learned from their mistakes, developed new tactics. We did not wait for evolution to make us stronger. We made ourselves smarter. Thrace pulled up another display. I have recordings here, battles from your history. He played one, showing ancient warriors in armor fighting with swords and shields. This is from 2,000 years ago, primitive warfare. Now watch this, Thrace said, playing another video. This one showed soldiers in camouflage, using guerrilla tactics in jungle terrain, ambushes and traps and psychological warfare. This is from 200 years ago, completely different. And this, he said, showing a third recording. Cyber warfare, drones, information control, battles fought in virtual spaces and through propaganda and manipulation. 50 years ago. He turned off the displays. Your warfare evolved faster than you did. Why? Because the enemy also evolved, explained. When we developed a new tactic, our enemies studied it and created countermeasures. So we had to develop new tactics. It was an arms race, but with ideas instead of weapons. Tactics became obsolete within generations. Strategies that worked for our grandparents failed for us. We could not rely on instinct or tradition. We had to constantly adapt. The fight the way their ancestors fought, Minyu added, because it works against their traditional enemies. If a fight's another, they both use the same honor codes, the same tactics. It is predictable. Humans cannot be predictable, said. Because the moment we are predictable, another human will exploit that predictability. So we learn to be unpredictable, flexible, creative. Thrace was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked the question that had been bothering him since he started this research. If your people are so skilled at warfare, why do you hide it? Why present yourselves as peaceful? The three humans exchanged glances again. This time, it was who spoke, and her voice was softer than before, tinged with something that might have been sadness. Because we learned what war costs, she said. Commander, you asked about the world wars. Do you know how many humans died in those conflicts? Approximately 100 million, Thrace said. He had read the numbers. 100 million, repeated. 1 out of every 20 humans alive at the time, dead. And those were not soldiers killed in honorable combat. They were civilians burned in their homes, children starving in sieges, entire populations wiped out by weapons designed for maximum destruction. We invented bombs that could destroy cities in seconds, biological weapons that could kill millions. We stood on the edge of making our own world uninhabitable. She paused, and Thrace could see the emotion in her eyes. So we stopped, not because we could not fight anymore, because we understood exactly what fighting meant. We chose peace not from weakness but from knowledge. That is why we are diplomats now, Minyu added. Because we know what happens when diplomacy fails. We have seen it. We have lived it. We carry the scars of it in our history. Pulled up his own. May I show you something, Commander? Thrace nodded. Projected an image. It showed a city, or what had once been a city. Now it was just ruins, buildings reduced to rubble, streets torn apart, a landscape of devastation. This is Hiroshima, a human city after we dropped an atomic weapon on it. One weapon, one moment. 70,000 people dead instantly. Tens of thousands more dying slowly from radiation. He changed the image. This is Dresden, destroyed by conventional bombing. This is Stalingrad, where 1 million people died fighting over one city. This is the Somme, where 20,000 soldiers died in the first hour of battle. Another image. This is Cambodia, where 2 million people were killed by their own government. This is Rwanda, where neighbors murdered neighbors with basic tools. This is Syria, where chemical weapons were used against civilians. Thrace stared at the images, trying to process the scale of destruction. They had wars, yes, but wars between warriors, armies against armies. This was something else entirely. This was annihilation. Every human knows these images, said quietly. We teach them in our schools. We remember them in our monuments. We carry them in our cultural memory like scars that never fully heal. They remind us why we choose peace. But you are still warriors, Thrace said. It was not a question. Yes, Minyu agreed. We are still warriors. We just learn to be warriors who choose not to fight unless we must. And when we must fight, we fight with everything we have learned from 10,000 years of making war on ourselves. Thrace stood and walked to the window. Outside, he could see cadets training in the practice fields, sparring with honor and discipline, coordinating in perfect hive formations, enduring environmental extremes, and three small humans running the obstacle course with determination that seemed to exceed their physical capabilities. The simulation is in 3 days, Thrace said finally. A hive mind invasion scenario. It is designed to test everything you have learned. Most cadet teams fail it on their first attempt. We will not fail, Minyu said with quiet confidence. Thrace turned back to face them. You cannot know that. The hive is the greatest threat the galaxy has ever faced. They adapt to every tactic we use against them. They learn from every battle. Standard warrior approaches do not work. Good, said, and there was something fierce in her smile. Because we do not use standard approaches. Thrace looked at these 3 humans, these children of a violent world who had chosen peace, these warriors who claimed to fight without honor, these aliens who seemed less alien to him with every conversation. Dismissed, he said. Report to the simulation bay in 3 days, and cadets. They paused at the door. I hope you are right about yourselves, Thrace said. Because if you are, you may teach us something we desperately need to learn. After they left, Thrace returned to his desk and the holographic displays. He had a lot more reading to do about Earth, and the more he read, the more he understood why Commander Thrace had been wrong when he said Earth breeds no warriors. Earth had bred nothing but warriors for most of its history. The real question was whether those warriors, who had fought each other to the edge of extinction, could turn that terrible skill toward fighting for something instead of against each other. In 3 days, he would find out. The simulation chamber was the largest training facility in the Academy, a massive sphere that could recreate any battlefield in the galaxy with perfect accuracy. Minyu stood at the entrance with his assigned team, feeling the weight of what they were about to face. The hive mind invasion scenario had broken veteran soldiers. Most cadet teams failed it on their first attempt, and many never passed it at all. His team consisted of 6 cadets, the who had become something like a friend over the past weeks. Nara, a whose crystalline body could shift density at will, and Sura, 2 siblings who shared a partial hive connection, and another human who had arrived a week after Minyu. Remember, instructor announced to all the assembled teams, the simulation is designed to be overwhelming. The hive adapts to your tactics. It learns from your mistakes. It exploits your weaknesses. Your goal is not to win. Your goal is to survive for 30 minutes while protecting the colony's evacuation point. The doors opened and the teams entered the chamber. Immediately, the world changed. They stood on a planet's surface, the sky dark with smoke and ash. Buildings burned in the distance. The ground trembled with the impact of artillery, and approaching from all directions came the hive. They looked like insects made from nightmares, each one the size of a human, covered in black carapace that absorbed light rather than reflecting it. They moved in perfect coordination, thousands of individual bodies controlled by a single intelligence. They had no fear, no hesitation, no mercy. Defensive formation, commanded immediately. He was the team leader, chosen for his tactical training and natural authority. Nara, harden your body and hold the center, and Sura, coordinate flanking positions. Minyu and support positions behind the main line. It was a good plan, the kind taught in every military academy in the galaxy. Strong center, mobile flanks, support in the rear. Against conventional enemies, it would work perfectly. Against the Hive, it lasted 4 minutes. The Hive warriors hit their defensive line like a wave of darkness. Nara's crystalline body held at first, her enhanced density making her nearly invulnerable. But the Hive did not try to break through her. They simply flowed around her, targeting the gaps between defenders. And Sura tried to coordinate their movements, using their Hive connection to predict each other's actions. But the enemy Hive was faster, more experienced, more perfectly synchronized. Fought with honor and courage, his claws tearing through Hive warriors with devastating efficiency. But for every one he killed, 2 more took its place. The simulation tracked damage realistically, and Minyu could cease movement slowing as injuries accumulated. "We cannot hold," said, his antennae vibrating with stress. "There are too many." "Warriors do not retreat," growled, even as blood ran down his scaled arms. "Then warriors die," Minyu said sharply. "Everyone fall back to secondary position." "I did not give that order," snapped. "Then give it," Minyu said, meeting his eyes. "Or we all die here proving our courage to no one." For a heartbeat, hesitated. Then his warrior training warred with something else, something he had learned from fighting Minyu over the past weeks. The knowledge that survival mattered more than glory. "Fall back," ordered, controlled retreat to the inner perimeter. They pulled back and the Hive followed, but now Minyu could see the pattern. The Hive expected them to fight conventionally, to hold positions and trade casualties until they were overwhelmed. It was adapting its tactics based on that assumption. "We need to change the approach," Minyu said as they regrouped behind a barricade of rubble. "The Hive learns from what we do, so we need to do something it has not seen before." "Like what?" Nara asked. Her crystalline body was cracked in several places, energy leaking from the wounds like blood. "Like guerrilla warfare," suggested. She was smaller than Minyu, quick and clever, with the same adaptable mindset that characterized human fighters. "We stop fighting them like an army. We start fighting them like partisans." "Explain," demanded. Minyu pointed to the ruins around them. "We abandon the defensive position entirely. We split up, scatter into the ruins and attack from unexpected angles. Hit and run. Never stay in one place long enough for them to coordinate against us." "That is not how warriors fight," protested. "It is how humans fight," Minyu countered. "When we cannot win through strength, we win through deception." Santini twitched. The concept of honor forbids. "They are about to die if we keep fighting honorably," interrupted. "Is death with honor better than survival?" The Hive was closing in again. They had seconds to decide. "Do it," said finally. "We try the human way." They scattered into the ruins. The Hive, expecting them to defend the position, wasted precious seconds attacking an empty location. By the time it adapted, Minyu was already moving through the rubble, looking for opportunities. He found one when a group of Hive warriors passed below his position. Instead of engaging directly, he waited until they were past, then dropped a piece of rubble from above. It crashed down, not killing the warriors but disrupting their formation. Before they could recover, he was gone, already moving to a new position. Across the battlefield, his teammates were doing the same. Lured a group of Hive warriors into a collapsed building, then triggered a secondary collapse that buried them. Nara used her ability to change density, becoming light enough to leap between ruins and heavy enough to crash down on enemies from above. And Sura split their Hive connection, using it to coordinate ambushes from different directions simultaneously. Even adapted, using his strength not for direct combat but to create obstacles, tearing down structures to block Hive approaches and funneling them into kill zones. The Hive adapted too, but slower. It was designed to face conventional tactics, armies that held positions and fought with honor. Guerrilla warfare was chaotic, unpredictable, impossible to counter with standard responses. Time remaining, 15 minutes, announced the simulation's neutral voice. They were halfway there, but Minu could see the problem. The hive was learning. It was starting to predict their movements, to leave guards in positions they might use for ambushes. Soon, the guerrilla tactics would stop working. "We need another change," he said through the team communication system. "You still have those signal flares in your equipment pack." "Yes, but what?" "Use them. Create false signals. Make the hive think there are more of us than there are. Nara, can you create reflections with your crystalline body?" "If I angle correctly, yes." "Do it. Make them see us where we are not. Sura, I need you to broadcast false hive signals if you can. Confuse their coordination." "That is dishonorable," Sura protested. "Using deception against a hive mind is necessary," Minu finished. "They have one advantage, perfect coordination. We need to take that away from them." Laughed a harsh sound over the communicator. "The human teaches that to lie to a hive. Remarkable." But it worked. The signal flares created phantom targets. Nara's reflections made single cadets appear to be groups. The false hive signals and Sura broadcast caused moments of hesitation in the enemy coordination. It was not much, just seconds of confusion, but seconds were enough. Minu used those seconds. When a group of hive warriors charged toward a false reflection, he was waiting in the real position, striking from behind. When the hive sent forces to investigate a signal flare, they found nothing but wasted time. Time remaining 5 minutes. They were going to make it. Minu could see it now. The hive was powerful, coordinated, relentless, but it was also predictable in its own way. It adapted to tactics it understood, but tactics it had never seen before took time to process. And then the simulation changed the rules. A new wave of hive warriors appeared, larger than the others, covered in heavier armor. They did not respond to the guerrilla tactics or the deceptions. They simply began destroying everything, tearing down the ruins that provided cover, eliminating the environmental advantages the team had been using. "New strategy," Minu said quickly. "We need to." "No," interrupted. "No more strategies, no more running. These creatures understand nothing but strength, so we show them strength." "That is exactly what they want." "I know," said, and there was something in his voice that Minu had not heard before, understanding. "But sometimes human warriors must fight not because it is smart, but because it is necessary. You have taught me to survive. Let me teach you something about why we fight in the first place." Charged, not a reckless charge, but a deliberate one, drawing the attention of the new hive warriors toward himself. Nara understood immediately and moved to support him, her crystalline body hardening to maximum density. And Sura joined them, their hive coordination creating a perfect defensive formation. And Minu understood. They were buying time. 3 minutes left and the humans could hide, could survive those 3 minutes using guerrilla tactics, but the rest of the team would die doing it. Unless someone stood and fought, drawing the hive's attention away from the evacuation point they were supposed to be protecting. Minu said, "Follow my lead." They did not charge. That was not the human way. Instead, they flanked, they harassed, they struck at weak points and retreated before the hive could respond. They were not the main threat, so the hive largely ignored them. But every warrior they disabled was one less attacking's position. Time remaining 30 seconds. Was down on one knee, blood covering his scales. Nara's body had shattered in 3 places, and Sura stood back to back, exhausted. But they were still there, still fighting, still holding the evacuation point. 10 seconds. The hive prepared a final assault, gathering every remaining warrior for one overwhelming attack. 5 seconds. The wave began to move. Simulation complete, all objectives achieved. The chamber returned to normal. The burning planet disappeared. The hive warriors dissolved into light. The team stood in an empty white room, breathing hard, bleeding from injuries the simulation had made real enough to hurt but not to kill. Instructor entered, studying his. Remarkable. Your team is the first this cycle to complete the scenario on the first attempt, and your survival rate was 93%, well above the minimum standard. Looked at Minu, then held out his clawed hand. Minu took it, the gesture awkward between such different physiologies, but meaningful nonetheless. You were right, human said, and I was wrong. There are many ways to be a warrior. I think I am beginning to understand yours. The tribunal chamber was built to inspire awe and fear. The ceiling stretched up into darkness, and the walls were lined with banners representing every species in the Defense Corps. At the center, a raised platform held seats for the judges, 3 senior commanders representing the and military traditions. Behind them, observation galleries held hundreds of cadets and instructors who had come to watch the proceedings. Minu stood in the center of the chamber with and beside him. They wore their dress uniforms, the dark blue of the academy with silver insignia marking them as cadets. Around them, other teams who had attempted the hive simulation sat in designated areas, most looking resentful or confused. The accusations had started the day after the simulation. Multiple teams had filed formal complaints. The humans had used dishonorable tactics. They had taught other cadets to fight without honor. They had violated the warrior codes that the Defense Corps was built upon. Some demanded the humans be expelled. Others wanted them reassigned to support divisions. A few suggested they be sent home entirely. Commander Thrace sat to the side of the judges, his face unreadable. This tribunal is convened to address the conduct of human cadets during combat trials, announced Commander, the judge. His scales were white with age, and scars covered nearly every visible part of his body. Specifically, the use of tactics deemed inappropriate for warriors of the Defense Corps. Commander, the judge, leaned forward. Her 4 arms moved in complex patterns as she spoke. We have reviewed recordings of the simulation. We have testimony from multiple teams. The evidence shows that human cadets employed deception, false signals, and retreat from combat. These are not the ways of warriors. The third judge, commander of the, spoke in a voice like crystal chimes. Furthermore, humans have taught these tactics to other cadets, spreading this dishonorable approach to combat. The question before this tribunal is whether such behavior violates the standards of the Defense Corps. Cadet Minu, Commander said, you may speak in your defense. Minu stepped forward. He had prepared for this, had thought about what he would say. But now, standing in this chamber full of warriors from species that had fought honorably for thousands of years, the words he had planned seemed inadequate. So he spoke the truth instead. Commander asked what warriors could emerge from Earth, Minu said, his voice carrying through the quiet chamber. He was looking for warriors like you, strong, honorable, brave, warriors who fight with courage and die with dignity. He paused. But we are not warriors like you. We are warriors like us, and that is different. Different how? Commander demanded. Explain these dishonorable tactics. They are only dishonorable if you believe honor matters more than survival, Minu replied. On Earth, we learned that it does not. Honor is what you practice when you have the luxury of choice. When the choice is survive or die honorably, humans choose to survive. A murmur ran through the observation galleries. Some sounded offended, others sounded curious. Stepped forward to stand beside Minu. You think warriors must be noble. We learned that warriors are whoever is left standing when the fighting stops. On Earth, farmers became soldiers. Children became resistance fighters. Scientists built weapons. Teachers led armies. Anyone could be a warrior because everyone had to be at some point. That is not strength, Commander said. That is desperation. Yes, agreed. It is, but desperation makes you creative. When you cannot overpower your enemy, you outthink them. When you cannot defeat them directly, you defeat them indirectly. We did not develop these tactics because we wanted to. We developed them because we needed to survive against enemies who were just as smart, just as determined, just as human as we were. Stepped forward, joining the other two. May I present evidence, commanders? Commander gestured permission, pulled up his, and projected holographic displays into the center of the chamber. These are the simulation results from all teams this cycle, he said. Numbers and graphs appeared, showing survival rates, objective completion, casualty percentages. Teams using traditional warrior tactics had a 17% success rate on their first attempt. Average survival was 42% of the team. He highlighted different sections. Teams with human members, or teams that adopted human tactics after observation, had a 73% success rate. Average survival was 89% of the team. The silence that followed was heavy. These numbers prove nothing, Commander said, but his voice was less certain. The simulation tests courage and honor as much as tactical success. With respect, Commander replied, the simulation tests ability to defend against the hive. The real hive does not care about courage or honor. It only cares about consuming everything in its path. Against an enemy like that, which is more valuable? The warrior who dies gloriously, or the warrior who completes the mission and survives to fight again? This is not about survival, a voice called from the observation gallery. Minyu looked up and saw a cadet standing. This is about what kind of military we want to be. Do we want to be warriors who fight with pride and honor, or do we want to be, what, sneaks, cowards? Other voices joined in, arguing, debating. The tribunal chamber descended into chaos. Commander raised his hand for silence, and slowly the noise subsided. The cadet raises a valid concern, said. The Defense Corps has always been built on warrior traditions, honor codes that unite different species. If we abandon those codes, what holds us together? Before Minyu could respond, another voice spoke. May I address the tribunal? Everyone turned. Stood in the gallery, and beside him were Nara and Sura, the team that had fought alongside the humans in the simulation. You may speak, Cadet, Commander said. Descended to the chamber floor. He moved with the confidence of a warrior, but Minyu noticed something different in his posture, a flexibility that had not been there before. I challenged Cadet Minyu on his first day because I did not understand him, said. I thought he fought like prey, without honor, without courage. I was wrong. He turned to face the judges. He fights the way he does because he has fought enemies that I have never faced. Enemies who think like he thinks, who adapt like he adapts, who learn like he learns. Nara stepped forward. We pride ourselves on endurance, on outlasting any threat through patience and resilience. But in the simulation, patience would have killed us. The humans taught me that sometimes survival means changing faster than your enemy can adapt. And Sura spoke together, their hive connection making their words synchronize perfectly. Coordination is our strength, but the humans showed us that coordination without deception is predictable, and predictability is death against an adaptive enemy. They did not make us less honorable, continued. They made us more effective, and in a war where the enemy does not understand honor, effectiveness is what will save lives. Commander Thrace stood, all eyes turned to him. I have been thinking about this question since the humans arrived, Thrace said. Why does Earth breed no warriors? I was looking for warriors that match our definitions, but I was asking the wrong question. He walked to the center of the chamber. The right question is, what kind of warrior does the galaxy need? He pulled up his own holographic display, showing star maps with red zones spreading across them. This is the hive's advance over the past 10 cycles. Every red zone is a system that fell to them. Standard warrior tactics slow them down, but do not stop them. They adapt to everything we throw at them. The maps showed the grim reality. The hive was winning. Need warriors, Thrace continued. We will always need warriors. beings who are willing to stand between danger and the innocent, who will fight when fighting is necessary. But we also need something we have never had before. He turned to look at the three humans. We need soldiers who fight to win, not to prove themselves. We need tactics that adapt faster than the enemy. We need warriors who understand that survival is not cowardice, and that honor without victory is just elaborate suicide. He faced the judges. I propose that we are looking at this wrong. The question is not whether human tactics are honorable. The question is whether they work, and the evidence says they do. Commander was silent for a long moment. Then he looked at commanders and some silent communication passed between them. This tribunal has reached a decision, announced. The human cadets have not violated the warrior codes because the codes were never designed for the kind of warfare they practice. Therefore, we cannot judge them by standards that do not apply. Relief flooded through Minu, but was not finished. However, we recognize that their approach has value, effective value, as demonstrated by simulation results. Therefore, the humans will continue their training in the warrior division. Furthermore, they will establish a new training program in adaptive combat tactics. All cadets who wish to may attend these sessions. Additionally, Commander added, we are creating a new division within the Defense Corps, the Adaptive Combat Unit. This unit will specialize in unconventional warfare, guerrilla tactics, and rapid adaptation to enemy strategies. Cadets Minu, and are offered positions in developing this unit's doctrine and training protocols. Minu exchanged glances with End. This was more than they had hoped for, more than they had imagined possible. With respect, commanders, Minu said, I appreciate the offer, but I did not come here to teach or develop doctrine. I came here to serve alongside these warriors. He gestured to and the others. I request permission to continue as a combat cadet and deploy with a standard unit upon graduation. Nodded, I agree with Cadet Minu. We are warriors, not instructors. Let us prove that in the field. As do I, added. Commander's expression was unreadable. Then, slowly, something that might have been approval crossed his face. Granted, you will complete your training as combat cadets, but you will also assist in developing the new training protocols. The galaxy needs what you know. You will teach it and you will use it. The tribunal was dismissed. As the chamber emptied, cadets from multiple species approached the humans, some to congratulate them, others to ask questions about tactics, a few to challenge them to training matches, eager to test these new methods. Waited until the crowd thinned, then approached Minu. You could have accepted the prestigious position. Why did you refuse? Minu smiled. Because teaching tactics is not the same as fighting alongside friends. I would rather be a soldier in a good unit than a general in a bad one. Friends, repeated as if testing the word. Is that what we are? I think so, Minu said. We fought together, we survived together. On Earth, that makes you friends. On that makes you battle brothers, replied. It is a higher honor than friendship. Then we are both, Minu decided. Months passed. The humans completed their training alongside warriors from a dozen species. They taught their tactics to anyone who wanted to learn, and learned from the warriors around them in return. Minu discovered that courage and human adaptability combined into something formidable. Found that endurance and human creativity made seemingly impossible missions achievable. Proved that coordination and human strategic thinking could outsmart enemies that had seemed unbeatable. Graduation came on a clear day, with the stars visible through the academy's dome. Minu stood with his class, thousands of cadets from hundreds of worlds, all wearing the dark blue uniform of the Defense Corps. They were no longer cadets. They were soldiers now, ready to deploy to the front lines of the war against the Hive. Before the ceremony, a young cadet approached Minu. She was from a newer class, barely 2 weeks into training. Cadet Minu, she said hesitantly, is it true what they say, that Earth breeds no warriors? Minu looked at her, then at and standing nearby. He looked at Nara, At Insura. He looked at the mixed species unit they would deploy with, warriors from different worlds who had learned to fight together using tactics developed from human experience and alien strength combined. Look closer, Minyu said simply. He gestured to himself, to the other humans, to the unit assembled around them. We do not breed warriors, we make them. Through choice, through training, through deciding that some things are worth fighting for. And anyone can become one, regardless of what species they are or what world they come from. The cadet's crystalline body shimmered with what might have been understanding. The ceremony began. Names were called. Assignments were given. And when it was done, Minyu's unit boarded their transport ship, heading toward the front lines of a war that would test everything they had learned. As the ship entered faster-than-light travel, Minyu looked at his teammates. Different species, different cultures, different ways of thinking about honor and courage and what it meant to be a warrior, but united now by something stronger than tradition. They were going to war, not as or humans, but as soldiers who fought to win, who adapted to survive, who understood that true strength was not about proving yourself, but about protecting others. The galaxy had asked why Earth breeds no warriors. Minyu had shown them the answer, not by arguing or explaining, but by being exactly what he had claimed to be from the very beginning. A warrior, just not the kind they expected. And perhaps, he thought as the stars streaked past the viewport, that was exactly the kind the galaxy needed most.